Hello, I'm Robin and welcome to the October edition of Molten Music Monthly. Well, welcome back to another month of crazy music, technology, synthesizers, modular, weird sound making devices, glitch machines, noises and all sorts of bits and pieces. I myself have turned into a little bit of a noise and glitch machine recently. I just seem to have stuff pouring out of every single orifice, which is nice, but I'll try not to dwell on that. I will try to push on through, keep myself together and be as succinct and as fast talking as I can with this month's collection of stuff before I just gum up and just want to go back to bed. So without further ado, let's get on with it. First up is Synth East. Synth East. Synthesizer East. All of the synthesizers in all of the eastern-ness. Here in the heart of Norwich, in February, there will be the festival that is Synth East. Getting it? Synth East. Synthesizers in the east of England, in Norwich, February 21st to the 23rd. It's going to be a fantastic festival of fun times. It's an extraordinary opportunity to bring people together, to get together in a big room and go, look at these synths and stuff, and talk to each other, interact, press buttons, play on keyboards, and listen to extraordinary performances. That's what it's all about. Synth East is designed absolutely to be a fun time, to be a festival, as I say, not to be some kind of corporate exercise in cynical advertising and marketing and sales, which of course it is, but that's not our intention. We live in this universe where we exchange money for goods and services. We like to play on things, and we like people to build things that we play on. We like people to produce stuff that we can use to incorporate and explore our own creativity in ways that we had never thought possible. And so we have a festival to celebrate that. We celebrate it, we get to go on all sorts of things, get to try out all sorts of stuff, and we get to just be together in the company of control voltages, of MIDI, of live performance, of sound, of noise, of glitch, of craziness, beer, buns, and sausage rolls. I think that's it. So you can buy tickets now. There's sort of different parts to it. There's a Friday night, which is a film. Mark Reeder's B-movie, which is a movie all about Berlin in the 1980s, which is extraordinary. I can't quite wait to see all of that. It looks totally mad. And then after that we have John Fox, who's a synthesizer luminary, an artist, writer, visionary, talking to our friend Adam Buxton. Should be great. Then we're just going to get drunk. Awesome. Saturday is the expo where all the manufacturers come together and show all their stuff, and we can mill around just really soaking it all up while there are performances from extraordinary people on the stage. And then in the evening we have Seafeel and Lula York and myself and Paulie Bow having a bit of a go which should be extraordinary. I think come for that. Just come for that. We're going to be amazing. It's going to be fantastic. Then on Sunday we have some DIY workshops. I've already done videos on this. There's a trailer out there you can go and see. There's stuff on the website. You can go pick up your tickets now. Don't delay, because we have sold out every year so far. So, don't put it off. I have this list of people that come to me in sort of January, February time going, oh, do you have any tickets left? No, we do not. So do it now. Do it before Christmas. Get yourself booked in, and then you won't need to worry about it. Synth East next February. It's a fantastic thing. Don't miss it. Right, back to the real stuff then. Starting off with BlaknBlu. BlaknBlu, interesting. British company, I think, who produced, to start with, these huge 4-channel things. The Foxtrot and the Alpha could have been. And I had the filter one here, reviewed it for Sound and Sound recently. You can go and read all about that. But it's essentially a modelled filter bank of 4 filters with 3 filters in each. Anyway, I have the Duo version over there, which is great. It's a single module, much smaller, has your 3 filter models in, a ladder, state variable, and a MS-20. I think that's right. No, SEM. Yeah, no, that is right. That's about right. Yeah, SEM filter, ladder filter, Korg filter. Yeah, that sounds brilliant. And it's all digital. It's all emulated. It's not, for reals in terms of circuitry, but it sounds really, really great. Anyway, they have an oscillator out. And my understanding is that it's based essentially on the Oscar. And within this Oscar-inspired oscillator, you have two oscillators, in fact, that are causing some kind of complex interplay. It uses a discrete summation formula to give us very interesting tones. FM-like or esque, but not necessarily done in that sort of way. But you have this clashing and metallic clanging of waveforms as they crash and merge and ebb and flow and wax and wane and go and forth, giving us an opportunity to sort of move between FM style modulation, but you can also stack it into some glorious detunable, lushable analog-esque tones. But again, it's a digital oscillator, but they're very, very good at emulating what we like about analog stuff. So it's going to be very interesting to check that one out. Behringer, a little bit of space for Behringer this month. They've got a couple of things cooking. I'm not sure exactly how available these things are because you can never tell. It's usually Behringer goes, hey, there's a thing. And you go, right, let's go. Oh, I can't buy it yet. It's still 6 months on a boat somewhere. So you're going to have to go and look these things up because I just don't have the time at the moment. What are we talking about? We're talking about the Behringer surges and grinds. Not bad names, I have to say. Not bad names at all. Now, surges is, of course, not an original design. It's based on Mutable Instruments' Ripples, which is Mutable's filter, which has been great. It's a great filter. It has a very sort of liquid heart to it. It always feels very bubbly, and I imagine the Behringer one is mirroring exactly what it is that the Mutable one does, because essentially the firmware is free for them to use, and they do, and then they sell it to you for $50. It's only 50 quid. I mean, that's amazing for a Eurorack filter. So there's very little one can say other than, cool, well, that sounds great. Doesn't look too bad either. I mean, they've got Behringer has this slightly crazy design aesthetic with their Eurorack modules, only up until this point. They've been quite varied, quite random, but, you know, not terribly bad. At least they seem to have some kind of character and identity to them, which is great. So that's surges. The other one they've got is grinds, as I say. Now, grinds is also another take on Mutable Instruments plats. So like they did a module which was based on plats. Its name escapes me. Brains, I think it was called. That's right. That they did a while ago. Now they've got grinds. Now this is done in the size and shape of the Crave, which is their Mother 32 clone. You've got to keep up with exactly where all this stuff comes from. This is called grinds, so it's in a desktop unit rather than Eurorack, which I prefer, to be honest. If you're going to make a synthesizer, it doesn't have to fit in Eurorack, because Eurorack is artificially small. You know, take advantage of Eurorack, absolutely, because it has its phenomenalness all built into itself. But if you're going to design a self-contained synthesizer, then make it self-contained. It doesn't have to fit in the rack, because that makes everything small. Anyway, so grinds isn't like that. It's a desktop unit, and it's essentially a semi-modular synthesizer based again on the plats. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine, and it's probably really interesting to play with. Personally, at this stage in the game, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit bored of plats. I don't know if one's allowed to say that, because it's a very highly revered Mutable Instruments design, and at the time when it was put together, braids and then plats after it, fantastic, phenomenal, a great selection of multiple waveform engines within a single module that can give you a wide range of sounds. Great. I've never liked it. Other than the virtual analog stuff, which I quite liked, that was in it. But then I've got analog stuff, so I don't really need a virtual analog oscillator, in my view. The other bits and noises and quirks and FME stuff inside, I don't know, that's just not my thing, man. So there we are. But there's a lot of stuff which now has those algorithms. The algorithms from the plats, they're everywhere. They're in your Microfreak, your Mini-Freak, they're in your Disting, they're in software, they're in other modules and bits and pieces. Everybody has them. You can put them in your Korg, Logi synthesizers. You know, we have those sounds. So the fact that we have a new synthesizer that has those sounds inside is, for me, not particularly exciting. But if that's what you're after, it's certainly good value for money, and you get a semi-modular working complete with analog filter, no doubt. Grinds, Behringer grinds, synthesizer thingy. Go fill your boots. Oh yeah, there was just one other thing as well. Their JP4, is it called? No, is it called that? I don't know. They did this JP8000 little tiny mini synth called, is it the JP4000? I don't know. They made this little really tiny stylophone sized one, and they forgot to put MIDI on it, right? And they sold like 100,000 million of them. And then people started saying, but I can't play it. I mean, I can play it through my computer. I mean, it's an odd thing, really, because it's, in some ways, it's designed, because it's virtual analog, it's designed to be a software synth in hardware form. And that's great. I think that has a lot of validity to it, because it means you don't have to take your computer everywhere with you if you want to play the sounds. Sadly, when they built this thing, you have to take your computer with you if you want to plug in an actual keyboard, rather than using the touchy thing on the front, which is like, I don't know, I don't really know what they're thinking. Anyway, Behringer have gotten around to sticking another port on so you can actually plug a MIDI keyboard into it, which is great. So well done. It's still, again, $50. It replacing the current one and making it just, well, a lot more usable, when previously it was a bit silly, I think. Good job. Well done. Good update. Meanwhile, back in Korg land, I don't know if you remember, I did this thing where I went around the Korg Museum and I chatted to Mr. Korgy Man, and we had a talk about all the sorts of things that Korg might do next. And one of the things that seemed to come up a lot was the possibility of resurrecting the monopoly. The monopoly is, I think, one of the most well-regarded Korg analog synthesizers. It gave you a bit of polyphony, it gave you 4 oscillators, it had some nice things going on, a great, quite unique look and sound. You know, it really sort of nailed its particular space in time, and people have enjoyed it ever since. And I think Korg have been asked time and time again, why don't you do something with that? Do something with that. I mean, Korg have helped release the ARP Odyssey and the ARP 2600. They've also just done the PS3000 very recently. You know, these old analog reimaginings of stuff, and I think there's been a lot of pressure for them to do a monopoly, and so they have sort of. I don't know. I mean, it sort of is. I mean, what they've done is they've used their Raspberry Pi based format, which is what the ModWave and the Opt6 and the Wave State come in. You know, it's a good size, good desktop size little synthesizer with a computer core inside that runs these emulations of stuff. And they've been brilliant. I've got a ModWave. It's a great little synthesizer. It gives you a wide range of sounds, great filters, great modulation. You know, it's really pitched nicely while being a little bit lightweight, but also really well priced. And so Korg have decided to go that route. And I can't help but be sort of disappointed. I mean, it looks great. Now, don't get me wrong. So this is called the Multi-Poly, I think. Yeah, that's right, the Multi-Poly. And it looks very similar to a ModWave, except that it has the blue colouring of the monopoly, which is, you know, the name and the colouring makes you go, oh well, it's a monopoly. This is really exciting, and it does have elements of that. But really, digging away underneath, it's really a ModWave Part 2. I think it is, and that's no bad thing, because a ModWave is great. An expanded, you know, overly featured version of that is also good. You know, it's got a nice big screen, it's got this chaos pad for modulation, which is great, it's got this interesting sequencer built in. You've now got 3 different sound engines, from virtual analog to, I don't remember, wavefolding and wavetable and wavefolding, I think that's what it is. So you've got a bit of sort of West Coast, rather than, because the ModWave actually had a sample engine in, so you had sort of PCM samples in there in the background. This, I don't believe, has that. This has more of a synthesis focus on giving you wavetables and then wave-folded sort of West Coast sounds. So it does give it a very different vibe to the ModWave. So although, as I'm saying, it's kind of like a ModWave 2, but it also isn't. It shares a lot of that energy, I think. but massive polyphony in this thing. You've got dual filters, of which there are many types, so you can dial in all sorts of filters from Korg's history and other things as well. So it has a very, very comprehensive filter section and 2 channels through it in order to set that up how you want it to go. It's got effects, it's got modulation, shed load of sounds. It sounds great. Now, however, it might be the drugs. It might be the current state of my psyche. Who knows? I prefer the Behringer. I prefer what Behringer have done with the monopoly, actually, because Behringer a little while ago did a clone of the monopoly in the flip up style of synthesizer they do, which is my favourite style of synth that Behringer do. I like those. They did the same with the Polymoog. Is that what they call it? Poly D. That's right. And they recently did the Roland SH5 in a similar fashion. This flip up thing with a bit of wooden sides. I think it's a nice, elegant design that's very, very reasonably priced and is all based on analog technology in the background. And so they've recreated the monopoly, and it looks great. Sounds decent, And I was really hoping that Korg were going to do that, but better. Do that, but more authentically. Do that with the power of the design and engineering that they have, just to make a higher quality, more robust, with some interesting ideas threaded through it, to really bring the monopoly into the current state of play. Instead, I feel we kind of got a cool software synth in a half decent plastic box. That's all right. That's great. It sounds great. Don't get me wrong. Sounds fantastic. I'm just disappointed that they didn't grasp the potential for doing interesting things with analog that could have been a bit more hybrid, that could have been a bit more, I don't know, just something other than a ModWave Mark II Plus. We want that too. Do that as a ModWave Mark II Plus, as I say, and then do a monopoly revisited. That's what I think they should have done. But hey, that's just me. As it stands, it's the multipoly. It's fantastic, absolutely fantastic. I'd really like to have a go at one, and I hope to have a go at one at Synth East. And it's under $1,000, which makes it phenomenally good value for money, I think. There you go. What do you think? What do you think of that? Of my ranting about that? Do you think I should go and get myself another coffee and a lemon sip? Or do you think I think I'm talking complete sense, and this is the only moment of truth that's ever been uttered from my my decaying corpse? Right, Elektron. I love Elektron. Right, Elektron Digitakt 2. Has anybody noticed? I reckon, right, you could have gone to any shop, any dealer that does Elektron, and they could have had the Digitone. Let me get this right. Digitone 2. Was it Digi1? Digioni. The Digioni 2 could have been sitting there on a shelf and no one would have noticed, because it looks exactly the same as all the other ones. And you go, it's a new one. Why? How is it new? Oh, it's just got more stuff. Oh, right, great. The Digitone is evidently one of the most fantastic groove boxes that was ever existed ever. It's been a 4-channel thing forever, and people have loved that and enjoyed that. We've got a 4-channel thing coming up later, as it happens. Anyway, now what is it? It's the Mark II. It's a Mark II. They changed a couple of colours of the buttons, and they're going to sell you the same thing all over again, but this time 16 channels of everything. 16's a magic number, because 4's no good for anybody. We all reach the end of 4. Oh no, except for the fact we've got a 4-track thing later. So no, 4 is evidently the perfect number, but 16 is just 4 lots of perfectness. That's the way to look at it. Yeah. So what do I know about this? Oh, I don't know. It's got percussion in it. It's got FM tones, the whole FM engine from the original one, of course. But you've also got what sounds like plats built in. So you've got like a 2-oscillator synth with a super saw and an FM drum, which sounds like more plats, doesn't it? So I reckon what they've done, so Elektron have got the Digitone, they've changed a couple of of button colours, right? Squeezed out the memory to 16 tracks, stuck in a Platts, and gone, there you go, Digitone Mark II, £5,000 or something like that. I don't know how much it costs. So one day, I'll have a go of Elektron Box, and my whole life will be changed, because I seem to be the only person who's not in the Elektron Club, who doesn't worship at the feet of the Digitac and the Digitone. They've just always left me a bit cold, I confess. I mean, I appreciate them, and I appreciate the impact that they've had and the quality, those sorts of things. In fact, the analog heat is something that I've quite drooled over from time to time. So it's always interesting. So I've just sort of been cheeky and poking fun, really, because that's kind of what I like to do. But it looks great, don't get me wrong, looks great. Brings in the sequencing engine from the Digitac 2, whatever that was, and just makes it all gloriously groovy. I'm definitely losing it, and I'm only a few in. Right, 2 HP, Dremel 2 HP, teeny weeny 2 HP modules. Do I have one to hand? Not really. So, like, somehow 2 HP, right, have produced a whole ton of Eurorack modules in this ridiculous format with ridiculously sized knobs and a single column of patch points, because that's all you can fit in. And they seem to make it work. I can't quite work it out. I've got two of their things. I've got a trim and a hi-hat, I think, and they're good. You know, they're good. They are fiddly. I mean, it always amuses me when they show their own system. You know, all of their stuff. They have to keep putting blanks in between them because you literally cannot get in there and use them. But I really enjoy the fact that they make it work, and the quality of it is excellent. But apparently 2HP have been away for a little while, for a year or so, and have now come back. And they've got two new modules for us to fiddle with. One is a swarm oscillator. Apparently it's got like 88 oscillators in there somewhere. So like a super saw, got sawtooth stuff in there that you can push apart to create this massive swarm or spread of oscillators. It will also do pulse waves as well, but there's only 55 of those apparently, because it's 2 HP. I mean, how much can you fit in these things? So that's an interesting way of adding some thick, lush sounds to your Eurorack in absolutely no space at all. The other one is a lo-fi module that gives you either tape crappiness or digital crappiness. So if you want a bit of crappiness in your thing, plug it through that. Fantastic. Meanwhile, back at the Doner Kebab van, we have the L1. Now I have a Doner B1, is it called? The TB303 clone. It's good, you know. It's nice. I mean, it's plastic and a bit bendable, but it sounds good. It's got a far more programmable front end than an actual 303. It's almost like the complexity of the 303 is being thrown in my face at the moment, because I've set it up in the kitchen at home because my kids suddenly got into a particular style of music that has a lot of 808 kits in it and 303 acid sort of bass lines going on. So I said, well, look, I have these things. So I dug them out from the back of the shed and set them up in the kitchen with a little speaker, and now they can play on an RD8 and a TD3, sitting there berridging away, trying to get that to work. And it's like every time I have to show them how to do it again, because it's like, I don't know, how do you program a 303? I mean, it's ridiculous. Ridiculous is what it is. And then, I mean, it's even worse because I'm trying to run the two in sync in order to show how groovy and cool this is. I've got my 808 sounds going on, and then I've got the acid bass going completely in sync. But of course, you can't program the 303 while it's in external sync, so you have to do a whole load of button combinations to take it out of sync, and then you program it, and then you put it back in sync, and oh dear, there are points along this analog journey where you realise that actually doing it all on computer is just so much easier. And there were reasons why we thought software was awesome, because we were just exhausted from having to get all this other stuff to work. Anyway, by the by, the Donner baseline B1 thing I had a different sort of sequence on it, which was just dead easy to use, and it was great. Worked good, sounded good, not bad at all. Anyway, they've got another one coming along. They've done a drum machine. I haven't had a go with that one. But they've got one called the L1, which is apparently an SH101 clone. and there's no sound demos that I've seen as yet, but it looks good. It's got a bunch of sliders on it like you'd expect, and allows you to control the analog synthesis, which is what you want. It gives you a good mix of waveforms. It has a couple of envelopes, I think, rather than just the one. Otherwise, it's pretty much an SH-101. And it has this really nice feature in which you can detach the keyboard. So I think what the plan is going to be with Donner is they're going to release a bunch of synths in a similar format, a little bit like Roland Boutique, to be fair. And then they have this keyboard that will attach to them to allow you to play it. Now, if it's like the Boutique, the terrible thing about the Roland Boutique is that keyboard was awful. It was the worst keyboard I've ever played in my life. I could not stand it. I had to sell it. I really did. It was just, I can't bear it. It would make you angry. And it was attached to really good, high quality, boutique, expensive Roland gear with this keyboard of Satan. He just wanted to it would snap, I think, just if you played it with any emotion. It would fall. Anyway, so it looks like Donner are going down a similar route, but perhaps with a keyboard that's a little bit more functional. That would be nice. So, that's one to look out for. I've no idea about the price or anything. It was just out there. I had a look and went, cool, that's interesting. Because, Donner are a Chinese company and an interesting alternative to Behringer. They're doing a very similar thing in that they're taking old designs and old technology, but they're doing them, in their own way, and that's interesting. And they're competitively priced with Behringer, so it's just interesting to see and interesting to compare, and potentially it's a good source of entry level synthesizers for everyone. More stuff from Erica Synths. I've got the Resonant FB thing here, which you can't see, that thing there, which is crazy bonkers EQ filtery stuff. It does really weird things that I had not expected. I hope to do a video on that at some point. There's always a difficulty with some of Erica Synths stuff is complicated, and I often feel like it's at a level beyond me sometimes, and the Resonant FB feels a bit like that, but I will try to get in there so that for people like me who don't feel particularly clever all the time, that maybe we'll get a little bit of my insight into what the heck this is about. But it's really, really interesting. However, what I'm talking about this month is that Erica Synths have a couple of new bits on the fly. Now, this is probably came out of Brystronica or some of the other festivals. I wasn't able to go because, before I had this, life-changing cold that I have at the moment, I had really bad toothache and I had to miss Brystronica because my tooth was going and was destroying me to the point that, it was this rising pain that I didn't know what to do with. I was running around going, I don't know what to do. It was crazy. But anyway, I had the tooth out and it's much better now, thank you, but I'm just enduring the aftermath, which appears to be a stinking cold. So I missed Brystronica, I missed Synth Fest, which is why Synth East is, of course, the most important event of the year. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, right. So Erica Synths, right, has a couple of new things. First of all, Perkons voice. Perkins? Who's Perkins? Oh, is that... No, are we talking about Porkins? No, Porkins was Star Wars. Who's Perkins, then? I don't remember. Anyway, Perkons is their hybrid drum machine. 4 channels, I think it is, of crazy drum voices with a wonderful 808 style interface, effects, distortion, blah, blah, blah. They've taken one of those voices out and stuck it into Eurorack, or are going to. It's not available yet. I saw this at some coverage of a festival last week. And it essentially takes there's 3 engines inside, 3 different drum engines of 3 different ways of creating some kind of percussive sound. It has, I think, a filter, analog filter, don't remember, and overdrive built in. And so you get a single one of these to go into your Eurorack. Looks like a lot of fun. Looks like a lot of fun for creating all sorts of things, although would you end up with 4 of them anyway? Maybe, but then you've got a Eurorack Perkons. Porkins. Right with you, Red 2. That kind of thing. Anyway, what else did they have? And yes, the BBD. Now I've got that here. Where do I have that? So the BBD is a Bucket Brigade delay, as we know, favoured by sort of dub artists and old analog delay type stuff. Gives you this crunchy sort of thing going on. There it is. Now, Gert, I spoke to Gertz about it a little while ago, and he was saying that this is fantastic. I have to send you one. It's like, oh, well, you better have then. And this is from Moritz Klein, of course, from the MKI EDU Educational DIY series that they did a year or so ago, that I did a whole series of videos on. But apparently Gert says this is just the most brilliant BBD, Bucket Brigade delay he's heard ever. He thinks the design is fantastic. So I'm actually looking forward to building this, and I hope to build it very soon, as soon as I can find some time, because it's a proper build. I've been doing lots of builds lately that are mostly surface mount, all done for you, and you're just putting on the front panels. And that's good, that's fine, that's good entry-level stuff. But this one has got nothing on it. Nothing on it. I'm going to have to do the lot, which is a bit more like it, a bit more meaty. So I'm looking forward to doing that and giving it a go, because if it's as good as they say it is, that'd be great. It's also a great opportunity to get my bypass out to show you how wonderful that works with things like this. See? It all ties in together like some beautiful, beautiful universe of things. Anyway, so yeah, that's available as a kit. As I say, I'll be doing a video on it shortly, so I better show you how good that is and how well that sounds. But there's always fantastic things coming out of Erica Synths. They are just amazing. I adore them. I do. Brilliant stuff. Next up is the Isobar Plexus. I haven't had a go at this yet. It recently turned up. I've plugged it in. I haven't quite gotten around to plugging other things into it. But what I understand of it is that you stick something in the front and it creates 9 outcomes, kind of in 3 channels. So there's 3 channels that are affected by different knobs. You've got sort of one that's the main signal, another one's attenuated version, another one's an inverted version, and then you've got a macro knob that allows you to shift between them. So the idea being one thing in, lots of things out, and to be able to morph and change a lot of parameters all at once through a single knob turn rather than having to do it individually. Quite interesting. It's, you know, there are similarities to things like Molten motion meter, like DivKid's Trace. There are things like this about that allow us to take modulation and either take lots of modulation and squish it down into a single outcome, or take a single outcome and morph it out to different things. And all of that is really interesting, because there's a lot I'm finding very much something that I'm increasingly wanting to do, is to be able to transition and to change the sound. Yeah, I've now kind of mastered the art of setting up a bass line, setting up a rhythm, and setting up another sound to go alongside it. Yeah, and I can do that. I just need it to then go somewhere else, and to find interesting and easy ways to do that, and perhaps to recover back as well. So things like this, I think, could be a good solution to that I'm going to explore sometime soon. There's a new module from the AtoVproject. Could be, I can't remember. They've been doing a great job for many years. They produced this wonderful controller, this fader bank thing, and I've had the kit of it for many years, and I just never got around to do it, which is a shame. And my understanding now is that whole project has had to be shelved because there just aren't the parts available for it anymore, which is a shame. But undisturbed, unperturbed, unbothered, they have a new module out, and this is looking great. It's a Euclidean module. We get a lot of Euclidean stuff. I mean, he must be raking it in on the old royalties by now, Mr. Euclid. But this is another circular one. But what's interesting about this is that it has these two concentric touch circles around the screen, which gives you a very interactive way of dealing with how it all works, as well as a lot of CV inputs over controlling the spread and intensity of the triggers. So essentially it's a drum trigger, right? It's a drum machine, 4 channels of it, I think. Yeah, 4 channels, trigger sequencer for triggering drums. You set up with these patterns, these circular patterns, these rhythms which interplay with each other. But I think we've heard it a lot. I think we hear it a lot in Eurorack. Because of Euclidean circles and other things like that, we use it a lot. There's a lot of it in the PAMs, for instance. that creates these rhythms. So I think trying to do something interesting with it is really the challenge, and I think what they've done is they've introduced probability, and they've introduced some other CV offsetting and bits and pieces that allow it to change and to vary, and I think that's very important. I think that's going to give it a slightly different edge while giving it this brilliant display that always keeps you in the loop as to what the heck is going on. So that's looking really interesting. I'll tell you the name. It is called the lx-euclid, I believe. Over in feedback modular land, we have a couple of new filters and a phaser, I believe. Filters though, JP8 filter and also a VCS3 filter. JP8 filter, JP8 being, you know, gloriously resonant and lovely and aggressive when you push it. That's the idea of that. The VCS3, it's a lot more, has no idea what it's doing. It was like it was built by a bunch of people who have never played on synthesizers before. Which I think is what happened in that shed down in Putney. They were just messing about with sound. They didn't really have, I mean, this is the thing about early pioneers in this stuff, they didn't have all that yawning experience that we have. You know, we sit around going, oh, I like this filter and I like a touch of that filter, I like a flavour of that one. They didn't have that. They just had to stick stuff together to see whether it worked. And so we have this wonderful filter in the Putney VCS3 synthesizer, which is just a bit unruly, a bit kind of crappy and falls apart around the edges. And Feedback have modelled that beautifully in their, what are they calling that? VCZIII. VCZIII, I think, is the filter. That and the JP8 filter. Those are the two. Fantastic. I mean, Feedback make great modules. Absolutely. When they got new filters out, they're definitely worth looking at. They've got this really great interface thing going on with the lights around the cut-off knob and stuff like that. Just really good stuff. I need to get back into my Feedback modules, I think. And yeah, they also got this phaser, I think it is, also out that I haven't looked at all, but I just remember seeing it. Hainbach is a fascinating concept. I think it's almost like a character that this guy plays, that's just an extraordinary invention of this artist and explorer of sounds and voltage and equipment and stuff. It's just fantastic. I love it. I think he's an absolutely thrilling member of the synthesizer community, and he makes everything around him better. He sort of elevates stuff because he has this ability to get inside machines and tones and talk about it in such a way that that brings it to life as a creative endeavour, as opposed to just a bit of old hardware that's making a noise. You know, there's an authenticity to him that is rare and engaging, something like that. Anyway, he's produced a module, right, along with Joranalogue, who makes extraordinarily high quality modules. They've put a whole load of stuff together. So what Hainbach was saying was that he's got this big tower of old nuclear and atomic test machine laboratory equipment, out of which he somehow rinses some kind of noise, and he's taken all of those ideas and all that stuff and stuck it into a Euro module. So ultimately what you get is this sound generator that's kind of throbbing away, and you have to sort of poke it and twist knobs and manipulate it so that it starts to bring out interesting tones that you can use and explore and find joy in. So this is called the Collide 4, and essentially it's just a big rack of weirdo gear boiled down to some noise, glitchy, strange, droney, exploratory and experimental tones of fascination. Future Sound Systems are back in the game. Yeah, they ebb and flow. They go, hey, we've got a whole load of stuff, and then they just disappear for a while, and then they come back and say, hey, we've got a whole new load of stuff. And this one is called Cric. I wonder where that name's come from. It's going to have to ask Finley. He'll tell us all about it. Finley Shakespeare, who's the geezer behind FSS, Future Sound Systems, is coming to Synth East. Again, funny enough, he's been every year. First year, he was a support act with Nick Colt-Void in Synth East 2023. Last year, he was the entire band of Blancmange. You just had your man at the front singing, and Finley was at the back doing all the stuff. Just crazy, just bonkers stuff. So he was amazing. I love all that. Anyway, he's back this year, Synth East 25, as part of the patch off, which is great, which means I potentially might have to play with the guy on stage. I mean, you know, that's pretty frightening. So, what am I talking about? So yeah, Finley's going to be part of the patch off. The patch off is a part of Synth East where we get 3 modular superstars, which is myself, Gaz Williams and Steve Davis. And then we get 3 idiots to play along. No, that's not how it works at all. Then we get 3 fabulous people to play along with us. Now, in the first couple of years, we did it all the names were drawn out of the hat. And it's just worked out that me, Steve and Gaz haven't been drawn against each other, which is good. That's how we want it, because we've played together before. And we did that for 2 years running, and it just worked out. This year, I think I'm going to game it so that I draw someone for me, I draw someone for Gaz, and I draw someone from Steve, just so that we don't end up playing together. Because I think it would be more interesting if us 3 play with the newcomers, which is what's happened so far. So that's the plan. So the people we have at the moment is Nikki from Dots, we have Paulie Bow, and now we have Finley Shakespeare. It's very, very exciting. Anyway, back to the Cric, right? So this is a synthesizer from Future Sound Systems. It's 3 oscillators, I believe, and a load of stuff. And its most defining feature, of course, is this massive pin matrix for patching. So rather than having patch cables everywhere, you have a pin matrix like you do on the Putney that we were talking about briefly a minute ago with the feedback filter module thingy-job. So what you do is stick a pin in, and that creates a connection between a source and a destination. That means you can put any source to all of the destinations, or one source, or all the sources to one destination, and whatever mix of that you like. It's quite extraordinary. Now, this was at Bristronica. I would have loved to have gone and seen it and played with it. I didn't get the opportunity, so I'm looking forward to seeing it in February at Synth East. Can I tell you anything about it? No, not really. But I think it uses, Future Sound Systems do a lot of their own ways of looking at things. They use like 18 dB filters, and they use comparators and recombinators and strange routings, which then gets modulated through wave folders and other crazy bits with distortion and overdrive and stuff. They are very much working to their own, dancing to their own tune, walking and fiddling to their own drums and stuff. They do their own thing, and that makes it exciting and edgy and just very different to most things you'll find. Finley and Future Sound Systems were a big part of the Malevolent synthesizer from PWM. They're the reason why that sounded so so aggressive and awesome. So I'm expecting great things out of the Cric, and I'm really looking forward to giving it a go. Dreadbox doing interesting things again. They've resurrected the NYX. Now I've got the Erebus and the Hades over here, which is their reinvented versions of those, which come in sort of kit form that you can quite easily put together, sort of snap it together, and have been a brilliant, good value way of reintroducing these synthesizers back into the market, because they're great little things. Dreadbox make great little synthesizers. The latest one they've done this to is the NYX. It's a similar idea, a couple of oscillators, whacking great big reverb, which is what it's all about. It loves a whole droney kind of ambient sort of vibe to it, and they've released that in a similar sort of kit format. Really great stuff. I've got a lot of time for them. Also, they've just released black panels for their Chromatic range, which is like I think it's a really good idea. Whether we, I love the fact that their Chromatic range of modules was this rainbow of colour. I love that. It's fantastic. You're very noticeable in your rack. You could see it. I thought it was bold, exciting, all those sorts of things. However, whether we like it or not, Noodle have had the same experience, funnily enough, is that sometimes the colour just puts people off. Some people want a black and white, or a black and silver, or just a black, or just a silver Eurorack. And if something comes that's just shouting with colour, then they're going to pass it by. And that's a shame, because you're missing out on potentially some awesome modules. So Dreadbox have decided to release a bunch of black panels, essentially, for the Chromatic range, which I think that's I think that's all right. I think that's a good idea. I think that's sensible. Gives them an opportunity to sell more of these modules to a wider market of people who don't necessarily want that kind of visualization in their life. I think my voice is just about holding it together. So what next we have is Cherry Audio's Atomika. This is a take on the Polivox, that fabulous Soviet synthesizer that we all kind of love and yet don't really know because very few of us have actually played on one. But it is, I mean, it's a legendary synthesizer. I mean, in some ways you could say partly because they were working against the odds in the Soviet Union to build this thing. It was the Soviets' answer to the Minimoog, of course, but it was built using whatever military bits and components they could find knocking around at the time. It gives it this undeniably edgy vibe, I think, ultimately. Anyway, Cherry Audio have emulated it in the way that they do and have produced a software version of it called Atomika, which is good. It's a good name. I like all of that. What amused me about it slightly is that they've done a lot of tweaks and a lot of changes, because it's like they make a big fuss about this being the most authentic emulation of the Polivox ever created, but we've changed this and we've tweaked that, we've taken that out, put this in, replaced it with something else, added this in, expanded the polyphony, put in a load of effects and bits and pieces, so it doesn't really sound anything like the Polivox did. Polivox was at best duophonic, I think, whereas this is 16 voices, and that means you can get fabulously paddy, big cinematic sounds out of it when it was never really intended to do so. But that doesn't matter that it wasn't intended for that. I just find that interesting. So great sounds. You can also make all of the labels turn into Russian if you want, which I think is absolutely vital, because when I was watching the demo video I was thinking, it's a real shame they've removed all the Russian writing, because it's part of the charm of the Polivox is having no idea what any of the knobs do. No idea at all. You just have to keep moving things and see what happens. But you can do that. You can switch that on so that so you can have that experience. Meanwhile, over in the Arturia emulation camp, they've been working on the Elka Synthx. This is an old, is it Italian synthesizer? I don't know. Do I know? I don't know. But this was a polyphonic analog synthesizer that was actually multi-timbral. You had a couple of layers, and this is something that Arturia has endeavoured to bring back, to emulate. Now, so you've got two layers of stuff going on, so two sounds happening at once, all layered up, beautifully interplaying and interlocking and modulating each other. You get two oscillators per voice per layer, I think that's right. You get a fully multi-mode filter and a whole stack of modulation. What they appear to have done is put lots of sort of background panels in. So whereas you've got the front panel with all the usual kinds of synthesizer action, you've got a lot of stuff behind the scenes so that you can tweak the oscillators a bit, you can tweak the filters a bit, you can change exactly what's going on behind the scenes to give you a bit more of an authentic tone, or a bit more of a difference and a variation and a flavour in different directions. They've gone full force into an effects section. There's also an interesting arpeggiator and sequencer all behind there. So, I mean, perhaps this is a sign of things to come for other synthesizers that Arturia do, that they have this kind of multiple layered depth in addition to what the original emulation is about, and that's quite interesting, because I mean, as I was saying with the Cherry Audio one too, I mean, while we like the authenticity, whereas I'm a big fan of having it do the thing that the original one did, expanding upon it is absolutely a natural thing to do in software. But I kind of like the idea that that's a separate field of play. So rather than incorporating it into sneaking things into the front panel, you can have this whole section, because when you play a synthesizer, having effects to hand, having an arpeggiator or a sequencer or something like that to give you an opportunity to play with it is really, really useful, even if they ultimately don't become part of what you're using the synthesizer for. But to be able to play it as an instrument in the context of all these effects and other stuff and bits and pieces and tweaks going on, I think is great. That's exactly what software should be doing. That's exactly why software sticks around, because it gives us this versatility and ability to just push old synthesizers out into whole new ground. Right, how are we doing? Are we nearly there? Getting there, I think. Right, the next one. Now this, I have a lot of room in my heart for the kind of collective delusion that is ROLI. I think they're extraordinary. I think they had one good idea that one time, and they've managed to somehow milk that for a decade. And they come, they go, they come, they raise a shed load of money, release the same product again, go bust, raise a bunch of money, release the same product, go bust again. Meanwhile, everyone who actually wants a ROLI, squishy, MPE, controller keyboard, fabulous thing, already has one, I think. So anyway, a few weeks ago, month ago probably, they started their wonderfully overly self-confident marketing machine. Started up saying, there was a video about a piano. It says, oh yes, I know, so many 100 years ago we invented the piano. It was a massive cultural change and a shift, and there's been nothing quite like the invention of the piano until now. You're going, oh, what could it be? ROLI are going to reinvent themselves again. What? Let me guess, it's a squishy keyboard, but a slightly new version. It's like a different colour or something. Anyway, these adverts went on. Oh yes, ROLI are about to reinvent everything you thought you knew about music. Oh, well, great. No, we didn't think, oh, well, great. We thought, yeah, right, ROLI, great, yeah. Super. So what happened? Well, it came along, didn't it? What is it? It's a hand-waving device. Really? What is this? 2014? Come on, ROLI, sort it out. I don't want to wave my hands around. I'm a keyboard player or a guitarist. I like my hands to be on my instrument, I mean, heck, I could get a theremin. If that's what I wanted, I could get a theremin and I could have some level of dignity playing a theremin because it's a known device. If I want to look like an idiot, there's plenty of places I can do that. I don't want to look like an idiot in the one place where I actually create in ways that aren't too bad. What am I talking about? Well, ROLI, as I say, ROLI want us to wave our hands around. The interesting thing is I thought it might be a ring to start with, because in the demo, the guy who's doing so I'm playing a keyboard, I'm waving my hands around to make a filter move or something. He's got these big rings on his fingers, and I thought, they've reinvented the ring controller thing. No, it's not that. What you have to get is there's been a scaffolding, right, that sits right in front of you, so between you and your computer, which is stupid. So it's in the way of your screen. It's got this thing that's presumably it's scanning you and filling you full of microwaves or something, and it's going to take your hands and model them, match them, and allow you to go whoosh, whoosh, wang, that kind of thing. The sort of thing you can do with your feet already, or you can do with one of their squishy keyboards already. But this is next generation, obviously. This is going to... I mean, we had the piano, right? We had the piano, and we've not had anything since the piano that's really changed the game in music making. So this is it. This is it. So not only can you play the piano, but you can then go by moving your hands around without slapping yourself in the face. I mean, I wonder whether if you were to hold like a wooden spoon in your mouth, whether you could use that. I mean, that would give you a little bit of extra stuff, because then you could keep playing. You wouldn't have to take your hands off the keyboard in order to make the thing move. Oh, ROLI, what's happened to you? That one good idea, man, that was so good. Right, back into the world of dreams. Here we are, Ableton Move 4-channel thing. I told you we had a 4-channel thing coming up. So this is Ableton. It looks a bit like a Novation launchpad thingy, but it's only half as deep. So you've got 4x8 pads. 4x8 pads, bunch of sounds inside. Probably comes from... Oh, I don't know. It comes from there's like a sampler, a synth, and percussion. So you've got 4 channels of that. So 1 channel of percussion, presumably, and then a bass line, pads, bits and pieces. You can sample directly into it. It's got a microphone. It's got a bunch of knobs for manipulation. Simple, elegant, I imagine, portable groove box, 4 channels, a great interface. I mean, to me, the interface that they've gone for, I mean, similar to the circuits and the Novation bits and pieces, it is relatively straightforward. Far more so for me than something like the Elektron stuff or the Liven stuff. I find that the Novation groove boxes, and kind of by extension the Ableton ones, tend to just be more intuitive. They tend to have a simple front end that invites you in, that you don't have to spend hours poring over the manual to understand. And that I very much appreciate. So this looks pretty groovy, you know. It does look pretty groovy, I have to say. It's very clean, good size, very portable. Yeah, rock and roll, 4-channel groove box. What could you possibly need? What could you possibly need more than that? Now for something slightly odd. This is from Nudlhed. Which is it? Nudlhed? No, Nudlhed. Noodlehead? I don't know. Anyway, it's a cassette, right? Have I got a cassette to hand? Yeah, I think I might have. I don't know. I've got a cassette from my good friends at the Galaxy Electric. So what this is, right? You get your cassette tape. Now, cassette tape has 4 channels on it. 4 channels, you say? How does that work? Well, it's stereo on both sides. The left, right, and left, right gives you 4 channels. That's how 4-track Porter Studios worked all this time. I bet you never knew. Isn't that amazing? 4 tracks on a tape. So all the way along here, 4 channels of sound you've got. Anyway, Nudlheads have produced this URAC module into which you stick a cassette, and it will take all 4 channels off all at once. So if I was to stick this in, you would get 2 channels the right way around and 2 channels playing backwards. I mean, that's actually quite cool, and honestly, with the Galaxy Electric, would you notice? Doesn't matter either way, really. It's fantastic stuff. So what's it about? So this is a URAC module, a cassette in there, off which you can stream 4 channels of stuff. You've got pitch control and you've got gating control. It has this companion module that goes alongside, which gives you sort of envelopes and gating over each of those channels. It's perhaps not as versatile as you initially think. It's 4 channels, but they all have to play back together. You can't separate them. It's not as if you can play each one back differently. They have to all be playing. Well, not all be playing, but they have the tape is all moving all at the same time regardless. But it's an interesting idea if you could build up some tapes with strange sounds or samples or something that you want to use, and you can then gate through them, so it's sort of playing through, and you can speed it up, slow it down, do tape stops, I imagine, and then gate different bits of it for all sorts of weird effects. It's a lot of fun. I've got tape stuff keeps cropping up in my modular, and it's something that I haven't quite found the time to really spend with yet, but I want to deeply. So I think that's really, really interesting, the whole tape loop business and putting things together for that. The only sort of slight downside of the Nudlhed thing is, are they calling it something? Oh, the Noodle Rider. There we go. That's a better name. Noodle Rider is that you can't record into it, because I guess it doesn't have a record head within the mechanism. So you have to record your tapes elsewhere and then put them in. But, you know, I imagine it would make it far more complicated if you had to have recording head in there as well, like I do here on my Lo-Fi U-Tape scrubber thing. There we go. Just the sound of it is amazing. Yeah, Noodle Rider looks fabulous. What a fantastic fun thing to play with. TreModular have another filter out. Is it a filter? Yes, it is. It's a transistor-based filter. Oh, another Soviet synthesizer-based one. That's great. I have a couple of their things. I have one here. The Replicant ADSR, which is one of the most annoying envelopes in the world, which I hope to do a video on at some point. Because this is the envelope pulled from the CS80, essentially. Replicant, see, it's in the name. They also do a filter. Filter is excellent. It's just bonkers excellent. For all the wrong reasons as well. As in, I usually expect filters to be really gritty and angry and resonant and self-oscillating and things like that. Whereas the Replicant filter is none of those things. It's really sort of soft and warm and it just wants to give you a big cuddle. And you go, why would I want this? But then as you start to play with it, you find that it just can produce these fantastic sounding bass lines with stuff. It's really, really nice. And this should go with it, apparently. But like I say, flipping initial level business on the CS80 envelopes, it melts my brain. I can't quite work it out. But I'd like to, and I will. I promise TreModular. I will get into that at some point. But anyway, they've got this new filter out called the Alisa based on the Alisa 1387 Soviet synthesizer, with built-in distortion, and it has a couple of buttons where you can switch the distortion in and out really quickly, which I like. I like the ability to do that, hence why I have invented a module called the bypass, which allows you to bypass other modules and other effects. You should go and check that out. Expert Sleepers, Disting NT. I love Expert Sleepers. I love Oz over at Expert Sleepers. I think he's a fantastically clever individual who makes extraordinary modules. Even the analog stuff is great. I don't mean even. I mean, the analog stuff is great. But his particular baby is programming algorithms into this whole Disting thing. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's a whole universe in a module is what it is. And what I find slightly funny is that there's no real explanation on the website as to what it is. What does it do? It's like, hello, what does it do? Because of the history of the Disting, we kind of already know. It's already baked into our culture. And so it doesn't really occur to Expert Sleepers to actually say, oh, well, this is a module that does this. So you have this. I mean, it's got a 200-page manual. I mean, fantastic. 200 pages of stuff telling you about the capabilities of this module. And a lot of that at the end, you start to get to, oh, well, this is what it actually does. So what does it do? Well, it can do all sorts of things. I mean, that's the point. That's the difficulty in explaining it. It's essentially, it's packed full of algorithms. Each algorithm you could see as an individual module. So it has things like sequencers and arpeggiators. It's got quantizers. It has a sampler, audio recorders, oscillators. It has utilities, wave shapers. It has effects like reverbs, delays, choruses, echoes, phase shifters. It has a Turing machine type of stuff, probability, noise, sample and hold. It has multi-sampled instruments, polyphonic FM synthesis, and all sorts of other possibilities all wrapped up inside it. The point with the NT version, I think, is that this is all rewritten sort of from the ground up, because it's like Expert Sleepers has got as far as they can with the Disting and the algorithms within it, and at some point I think it gets a little bit unruly, so Oz has sort of gone back, stripped it back, made everything much cleaner to give you a really good range of fantastically working algorithms that you can now run multiples of within the same machine because the processing power is so much greater. And to celebrate, we have fighter jets going overhead, which is nice. So big screen, you can see what's going on, thank goodness, but it's not for the faint-hearted. It's still complicated. There's a lot of stuff in there. There's a lot of stuff that comes up on that readout, and for people who really enjoy the complexity of modular and synthesis and the way that sound and signal control voltages interact and work with each other, it's probably the most extraordinary module out there. It's not designed to be a virtual modular system in of itself. It just provides this list of extraordinary functions and abilities that you can dial up and use. It's got to shed more ins and outs, so you can use it for affecting a lot more signals or multiple versions of things. So a fantastic thing. Hopefully I'll get a chance to get a demo at Synth East in February, because Expert Sleepers most definitely will be there. Hopefully the jet's going to leave us alone, because I can't just sit here and wait for them to fly off, go and bother somebody else. No, they're staying with us. How lovely. So to finish us off, almost literally, Everett Instruments. Oh, give it a rest. I had a sonic boom experience in the shed not long ago, the other week, because there was some kind of passenger jet that was squawking all sorts of the wrong numbers, and so they scrambled a couple of I say tornadoes, but that's it's not that anymore, is it? What is it these days? Them old Eurofighters. They sent up a couple of those, and it went screaming over my house, and the whole shed went boom like that. It was just extraordinary. I thought the whole place was going to fall down. It was anyway. They've gone a little bit. So Air Instruments I was talking about. So I mean that geezer, right, Paul Taz. He should have like a Nobel Prize by now in sort of weird electronic extraordinariness. Everything that comes out of Air Instruments is just amazing. I can't quite wrap my head around it. I think I think you need a certain kind of brain to really appreciate it, and my brain goes, oh, and then just sort of I get a bad function return and a bit of a blue screen. But I mean, this is fabulously artistic, wonderful stuff. At the moment, they've got this synthesizer called the Dark Marie. And these are all handmade little desktop devices designed to explore sound and interactivity. I mean that is really it. That's kind of Air Instruments to a T, really. It's sound and interactivity. What else? What comes out the other end doesn't really matter. It's not important, just as long as you are interacting with this machine somehow, and out the other end is some kind of outcome. With the Dark Marie, you've got all these posts and then crocodile clips in order to create patch points and patch in between different things. It has an inbuilt sequencer, delay, effects and bits and pieces going on, and you just explore. There's no sort of proper labelling telling you what anything does. At least I don't think so. It looks, in some ways, looks like a little pinball machine. Or rather, perhaps, it looks like one of those old... there's a name for it. I think there's a French name. I remember my parents-in-law had one in their old house where it had these little, I think they were wooden balls, or they could have been ball bearings. I don't know. Anyway, it sort of went up and then it fell down this mosaic of panel pins down into different things. Rather than being, a pinball machine that you imagine in an American diner, this was much more elegant. This ball that went round and then fell down between things. It looks like one of those, is what I'm trying to say in my addled state. That makes some kind of sense. So anyway, go and check that out. Very, very limited edition, but then all their stuff tends to be made by hand, and there's only a few of them knocking around. But just go and explore their website. I mean, the website makes no sense. You're not going to go there and go, oh right, I understand what they do. No. There's just like a scattering of stuff, and there's text and there's colours and there's crap in places, and you go, what actually are they selling? It's difficult to navigate, but that is part of unlocking the awesomeness of Air Instruments. Is if you can get through the website, then you've kind of qualified to the next level of actually understanding what it is that they do. Or maybe the website's just a front to actually sort of keep people away, so that only the real artistic and the ones who bypass that entirely and just give them a call on the phone. Maybe that's the way, is more direct communication with that. I don't really know. It's mysterious is what it is, but I thoroughly enjoy everything that they do. I thoroughly enjoy their very existence. I think it's an absolute joy to me, even if I don't understand half the things that they do. So that'll do, I think. That'll do. What have I got coming up? Well, for some reason I've got a whole big build-up of DIY lately, which is great. I love a bit of DIY, but it does make my channel look a little bit more niche than it needs to. So I think in between all this DIY I'm going to be doing videos of soon, I'm going to stick in some good old sort of clickbaity videos like the best budget synthesizers. That's absolutely, I meant to have done that already in October. I just didn't get the chance because I haven't been well. So I'm hoping to do that as soon as my sinuses have cleared up a little bit, my throat's a little bit better. I'll be putting out a best budget synthesizer, which is perfect timing for Christmas, of course. You would have almost thought I'd have a plan, wouldn't you? So I'm going to do a nice good video on that. And then I've got some great builds, like I've got the Wirehead Instruments Basilisk synthesizer to do. That's cool. I don't think that's even Eurorack. I think this is a desktop one. I've got the Div Skip kit to do. I've got the BBD, as I mentioned earlier. I've got this, what's this called? The Divergent Waves Sycamore kit. I've got kits from ages ago that I haven't had a go at yet. I've got some stuff from these people. The thing I've got. I mean, this is a controller for Eurorack, and I've got a Eurorack module to build in order to plug that into, along with a joystick version of the thing. Lots and lots of building, lots of exciting stuff, as well as big things too. I've also got a Mantis sitting over there in a box that I need to try out and do a review of that. Lots of stuff, lots of great things. If only I can ever find the time. So yeah, lots of good stuff to come. I would, ask you most sincerely to consider sponsoring us on Patreon. I know, everyone they're always talking about their Patreon, but it's such a vital resource. I'm finding that. no one pays me for these videos. Honestly, I don't get anything for making videos. And I love making videos. I absolutely love it. But it doesn't raise any money. Hardly. A little bit of advertising. That's it. So Patreon can really help with that. And if you like what I do, just throw me a couple of quid, every month. You'll hardly notice it. It's like buying me a coffee or a beer or something like that. And if enough of you do that, it's really, really helpful and takes the pressure off, and also encourages me into doing more videos and to spending more time here. The more sort of living that I can generate through the video making, through doing reviews, tutorials, explorations into things, DIY videos, modular jams, coming up with ideas and interesting things. I can only do that if it actually makes some kind of sense in paying the bills and bits and pieces like that. I will do as much as that I can always, but if you can help me out, that would be great. That would be really useful. So just consider going to visit us on Patreon, have a look. And I honestly do have something good coming for patrons very soon, which is I'm building a software sampler that I'm going to fill with sounds from stuff that I get to play with. So there'll be a sound bank from the Mantis. I've got one coming from the, what's it called? The Plasma voice, the Descartes voice, those sorts of things. The Algo. I'll be making sample packs of all these that you all get as a patron for free, I think. Or you'll be able to buy it separately, whatever. But things like that are coming along and I'm working on it. So that's a real good reason to support my channel, is so that I can provide you with cool things too. So that's the plan on that, really. So do go and check us out. So this Sunday, should we have a live stream? Yeah, I think so. Just gets ourselves into November. Let's get together on Sunday. I know that we had one a couple of weeks ago, but heck, I need to get back on track with this. So let's have one on Sunday, 8 o'clock. GMT we're on now. And we'll chat about synths and bits and pieces and come up with some interesting ideas and all sorts of fabulous things. I think I'll do. That's me. I'm gone. I think I'm gone now. So thanks for sticking with us. Thanks for coming along and supporting my channel. I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate your comments. I always try to respond to comments if I can. Look forward to seeing you on Sunday. And in the meantime, go and make some tunes.